In this video, I am going to show you the necessary things that you need to get started with web development with Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. Now, this is one simple project that I have made for the demonstration purposes. So as you can see here, we just have one simple smile icon, then one text, one input field, and one button. Now, whenever we type here something in this input field, then the text will update immediately. Also, as you can see, we are slowly animating this border of this input field, and whenever we click this button, then we are going to change the theme of our website as well. So before we start coding, let me introduce you with the two frameworks that are used for building websites with Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. Also, if you want to learn how to build a complete landing page project, then feel free to check out my online course that I have recently published. So Compose for Web is a new framework for building web applications using Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. One of the main benefits of using Compose for Web is that it simplifies the process of building web applications using a declarative programming model. This means that developers can describe the user interface of their application in a declarative manner rather than writing complex imperative code. Another benefit of using a Compose for Web is that it provides a high-level abstraction, which makes it easier to build and maintain complex web applications. The framework includes a wide range of components and widgets that can be used to build a user interface of an application, such as buttons, text fields, etc. Now, one thing to note here is that the code that we write with Kotlin and Jetpack Compose will be translated into the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript behind the scenes. And you will see about that when we export our project as a static website at the end of this video. Now, in this video specifically, we are going to use one new framework which was actually built on top of the Compose for Web, and that framework is called Kobweb. At the time of recording this video, Kobweb is not yet stable, but I've gotten information that the stable release is coming soon. So Kobweb has some features that Compose for Web doesn't, which is why I have decided to go for it. And some of them are page routing, which will basically allow you to navigate between multiple different pages on your website. Then we have API endpoints, so we can easily create those endpoints on our website. Then there is a live reloading feature. So basically with that feature, we don't have to start our server every time we change or make some change within our code. Instead, the live reloading will update our code and our website automatically. Then there is a dark and a light theming. So basically we can use Kobweb to customize dark and light colors of our website. So we can also change the theme of our website with one click. So I'm going to show you that in this video as well. Next, we have a Silk component library, so it's a library with some custom UI components that we can use out of the box. Then we have a font awesome icons, so you may have already heard about font awesome icons, and basically Kobweb provides different composable functions for many different font awesome icons. I'm going to showcase also that in this video. Then Kobweb also offers some custom layout composables like column, row, and box. And if you're coming from the Android world, then those layout composables are already familiar. And last but not least, many of those composable functions with the Kobweb framework will have a modifier as a parameter. So we can customize each and every component by using the modifier. Now, one thing to note here is that the modifier in a Kobweb is not actually the same as in Android, because on a web, we have some properties that we don't have in Android. And that means that there are some unique modifiers that are available in a Kobweb that are not available in Android. And also the order in which you place those modifiers is not actually important in a Kobweb, but in Android it is. Anyhow, earlier I've said that the code that we write in Kotlin will be eventually translated into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which brings us to the next question. Do we actually need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in order to use this framework? The answer is no. But it will definitely be a plus for you if you are already familiar with those technologies. Okay, enough introduction. I've gave you some basic information to know what you're going to deal with. And now goes the setup part. Now the first thing is a development environment. So for our IDE, I have decided to choose Intelij IDEA. and you can just go to their official website and download the community version, which is free. So you have it for Windows, macOS and Linux. Just click the download button and install this IDE if you don't already have it. The next thing, let me just close that. So this is the official website for a Kobweb framework, so kobweb.verabyte.com. At the moment of recording this video, there is no the official documentation on this website. That documentation is actually available on a GitHub profile or GitHub repository of this framework. So as you can see here, that documentation is quite large, and you can check out all those different sections of this documentation as well. But I have an information that this documentation, this official documentation, will be actually available soon. Let's just open up our GitHub repository here, and down below we also have the setup section, which describes exactly what we need to set up and start working with a Kobweb. So there are two main things that we need here. The first one is a Kobweb binary, and the second one is a Java 11. So you need to have at least a Java 11 if you want to use this framework. Now let's start with the first one. So if you want to download a Kobweb binary, open up this link and actually download this Kobweb binary 0.9.11 at the time of recording this video. So we can just open up that link in a new tab and the download will immediately start. Now I have already downloaded this actual file and I have extracted that zip file as well. So let me just open it up. As you can see here, I have extracted that directory. And that directory contains some files like this bin directory and others. The next thing that you need to do, you need to open up your environment variables. So just type here environment variables or system environment variables and open that up. Now after that, we need to open up this and click this button environment variables. The next thing, you need to find here a path variable. So let's just scroll down below, there it is. Click edit, and down below you need to click here new and add the path of this bin directory of your Kobweb, okay? So in this case, as you can see here, I have just basically copied this whole path, which points to the bin directory of our Kobweb binary, and then paste that path right here and click OK. Now the next thing, you also need to download a Java 11, so if you don't have a Java 11, you can just click here this link, download a JDK. So from this Amazon, you can just go down below and find your operating system. In this case, I'm using a Windows, so I can just go down below to find a Windows 64. I can download this JDK as a zip file actually. And after you download that zip file, you also need to extract that file in your drive. In this case, I have also done that, so there you go. That's my JDK 11 directory. And also you need to modify one more environment variable. In this case, that variable is called a Java home. There you go. So just click edit and paste that path of your JDK right here. And after you complete that, then you're good to go. And the last thing, we can just double check and see whether we have successfully placed that Kobweb binary in our path variable. So let's just open up here CMD, right? And I can here type, for example, a Kobweb, then a version. And if you receive here the actual version, that means that you have set up that successfully. So after we have specified those environment variables, now we need to create here a project and open up that project in our Intelij IDEA. And the easiest way to do that is to clone one of the repositories from Kobweb that will act as a template for our project. So before I go into that, I'm going to navigate here to one directory in my drive. So I'm going to here choose the directory. I'm going to navigate to a Kobweb directory that I have already created. Inside this directory, I have a couple of different projects of my own. And now I'm going to create here a new project. So let's here type the command Kobweb space create. So after we type that, then we're going to see here a couple of different templates that we can choose. So we have app, app empty, chat, clock, counter, OpenGL, responsive, and a to-do. So all of those repositories are some simple templates that we can check out and see the actual code that has been written with this framework. But in this video, I'm going to choose an empty project and start from scratch. So just choose this one. Press enter, and then we need to specify the name of our folder project. So let's just here type, for example, a YouTube example in this case. So the title of our project will be YouTube example as well. Now press enter. The second thing, we need to specify the group ID. So I'm going to type here com.example.youtube example, or just YouTube. Now we are being asked whether we want to use this Silk component library. I'm going to type here yes and press enter. The next question is whether we want to define server behavior with the API routes. In this case, I'm not going to use API routes in this video, so I'm going to type here no. But in the future, I may create a new video to showcase this feature with the API routes. So press enter. The next question is whether we want to include a support for markdown files. In this case, I don't need that, so I'm going to type here no. And I'm not going to initialize here a Git for this project. I'm going to also type here no and press enter. And there you go. So now our project has been successfully created. And this project template will contain all the necessary code that we need to actually set up our Kobweb project. The last thing, we just need to open up the actual Intelij IDE and open up that same project. So let's just start the Intelij IDE. There it is. So this is the project that I have just cloned from GitHub. I'm going to open it up. Alright, so here we have received one default README file, which contains some basic information on how we can actually run our server. So we need to use those two commands to navigate to this site directory and then open up and actually run our Kobweb server. And before we start with the code, I'm going to now actually introduce you with this project itself. So here you're going to see two different Gradle build files. The one that we have for our project, it contains some default Maven repositories. And we also have our site module Gradle build file. We can also open that up. And here you're going to see what kind of plugins and dependencies we actually have. At this point, we have a multi-platform plugin. We have a JetBrains Compose and a Kobweb application as well. This Kobweb Markdown plugin is disabled or commented out, since we have written that we actually don't need that. The next thing, we can also see a description of our website. Down below we can also see some other information like those are two modules. So we have a common main and a JS main. In this case, we are going to need only this JS main to actually make our website. And this module contains some dependencies for a Compose Web, for a Kobweb Core, Silk Core, Icons Font Awesome. And also this Markdown is actually commented out. Now the links of those dependencies are actually located inside a version catalog file. So we can just type here or press Shift 2 times. So press Shift 2 times and then type here toml. And then here a new file will appear. So libs.versions.toml-gradle. Let's just open up that file. And that file will contain all those dependencies and their respective versions. Now one thing to point out here is that when you want to update your versions inside this file, be sure to check the official documentation or repository here for a compatibility of those same versions. So at the time of recording this video, if you want to use 0.12.1 Kobweb version, then you should use Compose 1.3.1 and Kotlin 1.8.10. So be sure to check this information before you update your versions, otherwise you may receive some errors. Anyhow, that's how our version catalog looks like so far. Let's just close that for now. And basically, that's everything for our module level Gradle build file. The next thing, here we have a Kobweb directory, which contains one configuration file. And that configuration file contains some basic information about our server, as well as the title of our website. So we can also change the title of our website by modifying this value right here. And this is our source directory, which contains two modules, JS main for now. So we're going to use only JS main in this case for building our website. And at the moment we have only two Kotlin files. We have an index, so this is our actual home page. This is a composable function, which is annotated with a composable annotation, as well as with this page annotation. So this page annotation basically identifies your composable function as a new page that will be rendered on your website. And of course we have this my app Kotlin file, in which we can customize some things like the actual theme of our website and other things as well. And the first thing before we start coding, I'm going to show you how you can run the server. So to run the server, you need to open up the terminal here. And then from the terminal, you need to navigate to a site directory. So let's just here type cd space site. And then from this site directory, we need to write command kobweb space run. Press enter. and just wait a little bit until our server is actually started. And after your server is successfully started, then you can access your website on a local host. So just type here a local host AD and just wait until our server is actually running. Alright, so our server is up and running, and here we can see our website title, and a fav icon as well. So that fav icon is actually available in this resource directory. There you go. So that's our default fav icon, but you can replace that whenever you want. Okay, now let's close all of that. I'm going to open up this index page for now, and let's start adding some custom composable functions and create our UI. So in this page, I'm going to create a simple column. So let's call here a column composable function. I'm going to also pass here multiple parameters. The first one will be a modifier to fill the maximum size of our page, and the content in this column will be centered vertically and horizontally. So let's here call vertical arrangement. So arrangement center, and horizontal alignment.center horizontally. Now here inside, I'm going to first add one row, and inside that row I'm going to add two components, one text and one icon. Let me first here just specify a vertical alignment to be on the center as well. So for this row we use a center vertically alignment, and first we need to add the one icon. So I have already said that this Kobweb framework offers a font awesome library that we can use in our project immediately. So you can also check the website, which is called fontawesome.com, and there you can search for a different kind of icons that you actually need. For example, we can search for smile icons, and there you'll find lots of different smile icons that you can choose from. For example, we have here a face smile icon, and from our Kobweb library we can just type here FA, which is referring to a font awesome, and then face smile. Okay, this composable function or this actual icon accepts multiple parameters. First, let's specify here the modifier, so we can add a little bit of a margin on the right side, so 10 pixels. Let's just import this px. The next will be a size of our icon, so icon size dot maybe xxl, so the large icon. And we can also specify here the third parameter, which is a icon style, so style equal to icon style dot field. So we have a field and outline icons at this point. There you go. And on the right side of this icon, let's add one simple text element. So I'm going to use here a p composable, and basically a p is an HTML element that represents a paragraph. So let's just here add a simple p and call a text composable function to specify a simple text. For now, I'm going to leave that as an empty string, but later I will change that. And this p composable function comes from the Compose for a Web framework or a library, which is why here we don't see that modifier parameter. However, we can convert that modifier to attributes and actually use modifier as an attribute. So let's here specify that parameter. I'm going to call here a modifier dot to attributes. So this function will convert the modifiers to an attribute parameters. There you go. And here we can just call, for example, to specify some properties like the font size. So the font size will be 40 pixels for our text. There we go. And for now I can just type here hello and then a comma. Let's now open up our website. So now, as you can see, our website is a building, which means that the live reload feature works perfectly fine. We don't have to start our server from scratch. We can just wait until this building is complete, and then our website will compile. There we go. So now we can see one font awesome icon and one text. We can also use that other outline style of our icon. Let's just wait until this building process is finished, and then our website will immediately update itself. There you go, so it looks very nice. Also, I'm going to create here one property actually, so that property will be named a name, and I'm going to use here a by remember to remember one mutable state with a default value of an empty string. So this name will be specified here inside our text, inside the paragraph, right? And that name variable will be changed inside our input field. So now below this row, I'm going to add one input field. So just call here input function. As a type here, we can specify input type dot text, so dot text, there we go. We can also specify the attribute parameter, so just call here a modifier and convert that to the attribute parameter. And now we can specify here modifiers as well. I'm going to add here a padding, for example, on top and bottom of this input field to be 10 pixels, and on the left and the right to be 20 pixels instead. The next modifier which I want to add here will be a font size. So for example, the font size of this input field can be maybe 20 pixels, a little bit less than our paragraph above. And now I'm going to also add a body inside this toAttribute function, because this actually will give us some very useful properties that we can modify and some listeners that we can implement in our input fields. So here we have on change, on invalid, on select. We can add some custom attributes to our input HTML element. We can specify some classes, IDs, and many other different properties, CSS properties, and other different attributes and stuff. In this case, I'm going to just specify here and call a placeholder to specify a default placeholder value, which will be enter your name. And whenever we type here something, so I'm going to call here on input. So whenever we type something inside this input field, I want to update our name variable. So just call here it.value. There we go. Specify here a var instead of the val. And there we go. So now let's try to launch our website once again. And we should be able to see here one new input field below those two elements. Okay, so this is a default look of our input field at this point. As you can see, whenever we hover over and actually focus this field, then the border color and this box shadow will appear behind this input field. Now, as soon as I type here something in this input field, then our paragraph text will immediately update itself. And that's because we have specified here one property or a mutable state that has an empty string as a value by default, and whenever we type here something inside our input field, then that variable will be updated immediately, and that change will immediately reflect to our text here as well. The next thing, I'm going to also show you how we can remove this default style inside our text field. So in this case, as you can see, we have this border and the box shadow. So in order to remove this default style, we can just go to our project, and we can specify here a new parameter, which is in this case called outline. So in this outline, we can specify the width to be 0 pixels. So no any width. The style can be line style.none. And for the color, we can choose maybe colors. So we can call here this colors object, which actually allows us to access many different colors by default. So as you can see, we have lots of different colors that are here implemented by default. In this case, I'm going to choose here a transparent color. And now let's open up our website once again to see whether now this style will actually be shown in this input field. Okay, there we go. So now when I focus this field, we're not going to see any blue outline or a stroke appearing. So that's how it will work. And now I'm going to also show you how we can add our own custom style and customize different states of our input field. Like for example, whenever we hover over on this field, whenever this field is focused, and so on and so on. Let's go back to our project. So before we continue, I'm going to also create here one new enum class named theme. And this theme enum class will contain only one property named color of a type of CSS color value. Okay. And now I'm going to here add two different colors that will be, of course, used in this project by ourselves. So the first one will be named gray color. So let's just here specify a new constant. And here as a CSS color value parameter, I'm going to call RGB function, which accepts three different values of our color. Now I'm going to here type as R 238, G 238, and the B 238 as well. So colors inside the Kobweb are specified as RGB, so you can easily convert hex color code to RGB. You can open up a Google, for example, and type hex to RGB and convert that color to those three values, so it's quite easy. And the second color will be named blue. It will have a different numbers here, so 28 in this case, 181, and 224. There you go. So now as a background color of our input field, I'm going to specify here a new modifier, so background color, and as a color, I'm going to call here this custom enum class, so theme.gray.color. There you go. So now let's launch our application, and you should see that now the background color of this input field will change. So as simple as that. Now the next thing, I'm going to also show you how we can create our own custom style for this same component, or basically any other component, and customize its different states, like for example focus, hover, and others as well. So let's open up our project. Here I'm going to create a new variable here named input style. This variable will call one component style function, so let's call here component style, use this by keyword, and inside this component style we need to stylize different states of our component. So this component exposes this component modifier's value, and for example I'm going to here call a base function and also a focus function. So here I'm going to specify a modifier of our input field in its base state. So the only value that I want to animate here will be a border. So let's just here call a border. As a width, I'm going to specify here 2 pixels. As a style, I'm going to specify here a line style.solid. And as a color, I'm going to specify here a theme.gray.color. So that will be the base style of our input field. Now let's specify here the focus style of our input field. In this case, everything will stay the same, only the color will change to blue. And now we can call this input style to our input field right here. So let's just replace this default modifier with this input style, and we can call a toModifier function to convert this style into a modifier. Okay. So now let's just open up our website, and you should see that now whenever we focus this field, then its border color will immediately change. So now basically the reason why you don't see this stroke or a border is because that this border has the same color as the background. However, if I now click on this field and actually use that focus state of this field, then the border color will change. Now, if you want to animate this transition between this gray border color and this blue one, then you can just add here a simple modifier inside this input field, which is called a transition. And this transition accepts one class, which is called a CSS transition, which accepts multiple parameters. The first one is the actual property that we want to animate, so in this case that's a border. The second one is a duration, and the third one is a delay. There are also here other different parameters that we can specify, but in this case I'm going to choose only those two. So let's specify here a duration of this transition to be maybe 300 milliseconds, so just call here .ms and import this unit. Now let's open up our website once again, and whenever we now focus and defocus our field, then this border will animate with that same transition. So now as you can see, we can actually see that smooth transition of 300 milliseconds, which will animate that border color that we have specified in our code. There you go, so it looks very nice. And the last thing which I want to show here is how you can switch the theme on your website from a light to a dark and vice versa. So let's open up our project, and below our input field I'm going to add one button composable function. So let's choose this button that actually accepts a modifier as a parameter. We can specify here a modifier to just add a simple margin on the top, so we can separate our button with the input field. So let's add here only a top margin to be 24 pixels. And also let's add here on a click lambda. Plus we need to specify here a text inside our button as well. So just call here a text, and as a value we can just pass here change theme text. To change our theme, we also need to create here one more property or a variable. So let's call here color mode by remember color mode. And now whenever we click our button, I want to change here this color mode to its opposite value. So let's just here call color mode.opposite. There you go. And let's try to run our application. Now by default, Kobweb accepts a dark and a light theme, and their default colors are basically black and white. So whenever we change the theme from a light to the dark theme, then those text colors and this outline, for example, will change to white, while the background will change to black. Okay, So by default, this is how our button actually looks like. So we can also now press our button, and the colors here will change on the background, on this text, on this icon, and on our button as well. Okay, so there you go. Now you can also customize those colors by yourself. You can also use, for example, the logic here in our code, for example, in our face smile icon. So here I can add one more modifier, a color modifier, to specify the color of our icon. And here I can say if the color mode is actually a light. So here we have two functions, isLight and isDark. So we can call here isLight. So if that's true, then we can specify here the color to be black of our icon, and otherwise we can specify the color to be, for example, let's say colors.blue, or our blue from our theme, so theme.blue.color. Okay, so let me just specify here black actually. So when we are using a light theme, that color will be black, otherwise that color will be blue. And basically with this logic right here, we are overriding that default theme of our application. So we are no longer using black and white, we are now using a custom color based on this state of our color mode. Okay, so now let's try to change the theme. And as you can see, the color of our icon will change to blue, because we have overridden that behavior and specified our own custom color. Now there is also one more way to customize the theme of our application, so we don't have to do that directly inside our code. We can do that from our my_app function or my_app Kotlin file within this update theme function. If you want to customize your dark and the light theme of your application and override those default colors, which are basically white and black, then we can here specify and call this init slick context. We can call the theme, then palettes, and then we need to change this mutable slick palettes property. Now I'm going to call here a mutable silk palettes, and then we need to pass here two different parameters, which is a light and a dark. So each one of them has a set of different colors that will be used by default. So now let's, for example, try to specify here first the light. So the light here accepts multiple mutable silk palettes, so not palettes, but a palette. Let's just call here mutable silk palette, and we need to override some of those parameters like the background, then the color, a border, we have a link, then a button, overlay, and a tooltip as well. Now we don't have to specify all of them, so only a couple of those parameters are actually required and mandatory, otherwise are just optional. So for example, this tooltip, overlay, those two are just optional, and this border as well, and those four are required. So for the light theme background, let's specify here the white color, right? The next one is a color, so this color will be used as a text color in most cases. For that color we can just choose a black color to be in our light theme. Now as a link color, you will see that here this parameter does not accept a simple color parameter, it actually accepts mutable silk palette.link. So let's call here mutable silk palette.link, and here this link accepts two additional colors which are default and visited. Let's specify here a default color of our link to be maybe black. And whenever we visit that link, for example, that color will change to blue. So colors.blue, right? Next here we have a button. So let's also call here a mutable silk palette.button. This button accepts also a couple of more parameters or colors like default color, hover color, and a focus color as well. For those three, let me just here specify maybe let's see. So colors dark gray to be a default color of our button. Whenever we hover over our button, that color will change to a light gray. So colors.light gray. That color will also be used in our focus state. And whenever we press our button, then the color will change maybe to, let's say, only gray. There you go. And that's how a simple light theme should be specified in our update theme function, okay? So those are four our required parameters, but of course we can specify also the border color, tooltip, and the overlay as well. Now I'm going to just copy this mutable silk palette in this dark theme down below and only change their colors. Now for the dark theme, I'm going to choose the background to be black. So black. The color here will be of course the white, so the opposite value. The link color here be, for example, by default white, and whenever we visit a link, that color will change to blue, so that's totally fine. Then for our button here, we can specify maybe color blue to be a default color. The hover will be a medium blue, as well as this focus, so medium blue, and whenever we click our button, then the color will change to a dark blue. Okay, so now we have customized the theme of our application for both the light and the dark, and now we can try to see how those components will look like in our website. So in our case here on our website, we are using basically a button, this text color and the background, but we are not using a link. However, that doesn't matter because the same rule applies. So let's go back to our website. And by default, as you can see, whenever we hover over on this button, the color of this button will change to a light gray, like we have specified in our code. So there we go. We have here a lighter gray, or light gray actually. And whenever we press our button, that color will change to a gray. There we go, okay? So it works perfectly fine. And now let's try to change the theme of our website. So there we go. And now the colors here will change. So now the color of our button will be blue. Whenever we hover over, that color will also be changed to a dark blue, I think. So let me just see. Okay, so medium blue and dark blue whenever we press that button. There we go. So everything here works the way we have defined in our Kotlin file. And now the last thing which I want to show you here is how you can export your own project as a static website when you finish your project. So let's open up our Intelij IDEA. Here I'm going to open up the terminal once again. Let's just close or shut down our server by pressing here Q. So press Q on your keyboard and then the server will stop. So after the server is stopped, let's just type here a command, Kobweb space export space layout space static. So this command will basically export your project here as a static website in a form of HTML, CSS and even JavaScript. So now press enter and just wait until this export process is finished. And there we go. So now we have received a successful message. So the website is actually exported within your directory of your project. So just open up that same directory in which we have created that project. So in this case, that project is a YouTube example. Let's open up here the site, then a Kobweb. And within that Kobweb, we are going to see here a new site directory. Let's open it up. And this is our website. So in this case, we have only those 4 different files. So we have our resources, in this case only a fav icon. We have this YouTube.js and this js.map. Of course, with the index page as well. And that's basically our exported website. You can use those files and actually upload them to some hosting, web hosting, and actually deploy your website, so it's quite easy. And that's everything I wanted to showcase here in this video tutorial. So now you have learned how to easily set up a Kobweb, how to easily create a simple web application, how to use different components, different composable functions, icons, different colors, how to implement your own custom style, how to implement your own custom dark and light colors, and other things as well. So be sure to comment down below and let me know if you want to see some more videos about Kobweb and web development with Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. And also be sure to like this video, but only if you find it helpful. For this video, that will be all.
I'm a legend when they lay me down to